Let's talk about Gojo's battle with Sukuna, Mahoraga, and the future of JJK. Alright, let's get the filthy power scaling out of the way first. Mahoraga from Shibuya, untamed meat behemoth, absolutely no shot of taking on Gojo Satoru. We can sit here all day and talk about why Mahoraga dies, but the truth is, it's just Gojo outclasses Mahoraga in every single aspect, except for adaptation, and the adaptation it showed in Shibuya is just not enough. Now that being said, tamed Mahoraga under control of Ryomen Sukuna seems to have a superior adaptation to what we saw displayed in Shibuya, where during his fight with Yorozu, and after adapting to her technique, summoning Mahoraga, Mahoraga proved fully capable of interacting with infinite pressure in the True Sphere. Now, full disclosure, Kuroko Shinobi is not a physics major, but if I was, I would probably tell you the same thing, and that it is not a wise idea to touch something with infinite pressure. And Mahoraga, he just stabbed this thing with his sword of extermination, and he didn't feel any negative ramifications, so I am not really surprised Yorozu was like, what the fuck? Was this intentional from Gege? Is the adaptation supposed to be superior while he's tamed? Maybe, we don't know for sure, it could just be an oversight, but it definitely looks like it got better, and being able to just tank the effects of the technique no matter what they are is pretty impressive. And Mahoraga, like Gojo last chapter, is going to get new feats when he comes out. Gojo's not just going to one-shot this thing. Whatever bird feed he was giving new, he's going to give Mahoraga a similar buff, I imagine. And on the note of Sukuna caring about winning with 10 Shadows or not, he might care a little bit, but overall his main objective is victory. Ryomen Sukuna only cares about a hierarchy of power, everything else is boring to him, so if he defeats you, you're weaker to him, and that's all he cares about. If we dig into the psyche of Sukuna, and we look at what he considers weak and strong, it is not just the power level of his enemy, it is also their empathy for others and what it takes to reach a greater height. Empathetic ideologies like Yuji's, they're an affront to Sukuna's ideology, so it is no wonder that he hates Yuji the most. And speaking of Yuji, in this fight when we finally see the four-armed demon form of Sukuna, I will not be surprised if some of the characters that are watching on the TV screen say, hey, doesn't he kind of look like Yuji? Because the connection between Yuji and Sukuna, it's going to come out eventually, it really has to, and right now, the characters in the story, they don't really know about this connection like we the readers do. And as far as they are concerned, the tension is palpable because they have no help outside of Gojo. He is the last shot they have to fight Sukuna in their mind. Because we as readers, we know there is some plot bullshit going on with Sukuna and Kenjaku and Yuji. Whoever Yuji was, why Sukuna knows him, why Kenjaku thought he was a good idea to bring back or utilize in the creation of Yuji in general. Yuji getting strong is one of like the least ass-pull things this story could ever have, and there are a million reasons why, and I'll make a video on it eventually, but Yuji has always been destined to be ridiculous. Yuji gets up after being launched across the city, Sukuna is like, what is this strength? Why is he getting stronger? Oh yeah, it's because he's from back then. This is the first and only true acknowledgement Yuji gets from Ryomen Sukuna, and Sukuna has it as internal dialogue, and he directly relates Yuji to someone else he noted in the past. And the only people Sukuna takes note of in his life are the strong or the people he had a close relationship with pre-Fallen. Now, I was a little surprised that we got into the Gojo vs Sukuna fight so early because we're at like the very beginning of the end for JJK. And Gojo is here fighting Sukuna already, and the peanut gallery is watching from the sidelines. I think the peanut gallery has its ups and downs. On the one hand, we do get explanations for something like Sukuna's curse energy is twice of Yuta's and stuff like that, but it can also take away from the tension a bit because it feels more like we're watching a fight on TV instead of a fight to the death. And even though right now the actual world is at stake if Gojo loses, as far as everyone is concerned, I just don't feel it, because not only are Gojo and Sukuna seemingly having some fun, it is also the side characters who are sitting around doing nothing proactive and watching Gojo. And it's hard for me to take the merger plot seriously when the characters in the story aren't taking it seriously and they're all just waiting around. And I'm not really sure what they're planning if Gojo dies, because if Gojo dies, they have to go fight Sukuna next, and even if he's weakened, they're so far away, or at least out of Malevolent Shrine range, that he should be able to just fly away on Nu if it's not destroyed. And as of right now, we do not have Sukuna's technique revealed, so I'm going to talk about 10 Shadows for a bit. So Sukuna is going to use 10 Shadows, and the question is really when. And I'm guessing we're going to find out exactly why Sukuna wanted the 10 Shadows so much in the first place. We already know that Sukuna didn't really care about the Shikigami themselves as much as he cared about the application of creating those Shikigami with the actual shadows. And it's really not that surprising that someone like Sukuna, who already has a storage method for their technique, would want a superior storage method or an alternative storage method. So we might see a greater interaction with Sukuna's technique once the actual technique is revealed and 10 Shadows are in play. Though he could just use it for its Shikigami, that would be a little boring in my opinion. The Shikigami are cool, but the most interesting part about 10 Shadows is how versatile it is, and the Shikigami alone, they just don't really hit the mark for me. That being said, when all the Shikigami are fighting you at once, and they are bearing down on top of you alongside Ryoma and Sukuna and hand to hand, you are going to have a problem even if you're Gojo. Let's talk about the greatest fraud in all of JJK, the 6 Eyes Limitless user that died to an untamed Mahoraga. The thing about the previous 6 Eyes user that fought Mahoraga, he is pathetic compared to Gojo and Sukuna. The thing is, anybody who is on the level of Gojo or Sukuna is not going to die to an untamed Mahoraga. It's just not going to happen. 15 Finger Sukuna dusted this thing. The only shot it actually got on him was one he didn't anticipate the Curse Energy reinforcement of. A lot of people say the previous 6 Eyes Limitless user was weakened by the 10 Shadows user, but if he was unable to tame Mahoraga, there is just no way that he is on the level of Gojo or Sukuna in the first place. If you can't tame a Mahoraga, you have absolutely no shot of beating a Gojo or a Sukuna. This previous user was always featless, but a lot of people upscaled him just because, oh, he has 6 Eyes and Limitless, he must be as strong as Gojo, but clearly that is not the case. At this point, Gojo is heavily implied to be the strongest 6 Eyes user to ever live, and that does line up with Gege's statement that he was the pinnacle of power in the series. Just because you have these 6 Eyes and Limitless does not mean you use both as effectively as Gojo does. 6 Eyes and Limitless are really good, and they were definitely enough to stop someone like Kenjaku, but the true pinnacle of the 6 Eyes, it is Gojo. And Gojo is probably going to be the only character we see in Jujutsu Kaisen directly with the 6 Eyes, especially with the merger plot where Cursed Energy in general is probably going to be in a different form or gone altogether by the end of JJK. Because the real villain of Jujutsu Kaisen is Cursed Energy to some extent, it can't really be allowed to stay around. Cursed Energy is really the root of all problems, and it seems like Gege doesn't really talk about it as much anymore, but there was a lot of this conversation with Yuki and Kenjaku. Because as long as these barriers are up, as long as the world is leaking Cursed Energy, the curses will never stop. Eventually there could be a curse that has more potential than even Mahito did, and that's just a terrifying thought. And I'm surprised that nobody is ever shocked to see they have some free-thinking, sentient creatures that are born out of pure Cursed Energy, which does make sense to some extent just because, again, Cursed Energy really is just the negative emotions of humans. So maybe that's what Jogo, Hanami, Mahito, and all of them are talking about when they mention being the true humans. Because at the end of the day, cursed spirits are really just the offspring of negative emotions. And if you ask most people what makes a human, it would be their emotions. So the fact that you have things like Jogo crying or Hanami getting sad at the loss of some of their friends. And this really begs the question of what the true nature of a curse actually is. Are we going to see this answered by the end of the story? I hope so. It's been dropped a little bit. We don't see it mentioned as much anymore. Yuji talks about it a bit, and it's really tied to Sukuna and Yuji, and they're going to fight eventually or interact again, so maybe we'll see it there. I'm not sure. I hope we do. It's one of the most intriguing plot lines to me. I can't wait to see Kenjaku pop off the merger and like bring out the Thing creature from 1982. And that's assuming that the Thing actually goes off, because if the Thing shows up, well, everyone in Japan dies, and that's less than awesome. Either way, all of that is just my opinion, and I want to hear yours. What do you think about the Gojo versus Sukuna fight? Do you think he's going to use 10 Shadows? Are you hyped for the continuation of it, or do you think it is just filler? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.